All right. So if you remember the variable section, we talked a lot about naming variables, and a lot of the same items apply to function names. But we're going to cover two main cases of how they differ to make sure that we're doing the naming of functions correctly. So let's talk about that. Now, one of the things you'll see time and time again when naming our functions is the incorrect nature of not using a descriptive enough name. So take a look at this add user and just assume that in the background, we get our data, we do whatever we do with it, and then we add it to the database down below. Here, are we really adding a user, or are we adding a specific type of user? Well, in our case, a more descriptive name to really say what this function's doing is this is adding an admin user. We want to make sure that we make that clear. So you want to describe your functions for what they actually are doing, not just on a low level or a high level, but on a low level. Another common thing when naming your functions is not having a standardization for some of the naming conventions to go with it. Now, every team is going to be different on how they name things, but to standardize stuff is very crucial. So let's take a look at two ways. Here, we're retrieving an admin by ID, and down below, we're getting a user by ID. These are, two different methods. One's specifically for an admin, one's for a user. But the fact that when we retrieve something, that we aren't standardizing it to be get admin by ID when it's get, and you can do the same thing when you're doing a create admin, delete admin, create user, delete user. When you start creating this standardization, it makes your code much more readable. And as you go and you start doing code reviews and PRs and things like that, as you go into more advanced dev flows and dev practices and workflows as you work, some of these items you'll start to catch in PRs will make your life a little bit easier. So keep that in mind with your descriptive names and your standardization of naming for what a method or a function actually does.